Shane Beamer does the unthinkable and actually fires a coach mid-season as Lonnie Teasley, the offensive line coach, has been terminated and relieved of his duties. We talk about whether or not it was the right decision. Locked On Gamecocks starts right now.
You are Locked On Gamecocks, your daily podcast on the South Carolina Gamecocks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Locked On Gamecocks. I'm your host, Chris Marler. I hope everyone's having a fantastic Sunday. Not a great Saturday, I can tell you that. We'll get into it. We'll get into some of the fun stuff that happened on Saturday and at the weekend here in Baton Rouge, and also talk about the game itself. But most importantly, we're going to talk about Lonnie Teasley getting fired. Before we do so, I want to say thank you to everyone making Locked On Gamecocks your first listen each and every day. Shout out to everydayers. Remember, we're a free and available podcast wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, make sure, guys, help grow the channel. Comment in the YouTube comments in the section there. Subscribe if you haven't already. We are doing this every day during football season, and having a great time doing it, obviously. And not just that, we do it year-round as well. But we still got a lot of football season left, a lot of positives left. But we appreciate you guys. Before we get into it, also want to pay some bills and give a shout-out to our friends at Mazda. The episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. All right. It's not crazy. It's not crazy, but Lonnie Teasley is fired today, the offensive line coach at South Carolina, in I would say, a surprise move from Shane Beamer, not because it was not the right decision. I know I said in the top part of the show, was it the right decision? Yes, it was. And I want to start by saying this first and foremost, guys. I don't know Lonnie Teasley personally. I don't have anything negative to say about him as a person. This is a business, and I think that, like, one of the things that a lot of successful coaches have to do, and coaches in general, is make tough decisions, and I'm sure this was a tough decision for Shane Beamer. It's one we haven't seen him do a ton, especially in the middle of a season, since he has been the head coach of South Carolina. He had some interesting things to say about it, and we're going to get into that as well. But the thing that I wanted to say first and foremost, no one's happy that someone loses their job. I'm sure most of you are like me, and we've all, I think for the most part, lost a job at some point in our lives. It's not fun. Those are real, impactful decisions that are made that impact families and kids, and like, those are conversations you have to go home with the wife, figure out, like, you know, what to do next, moving, kids being in and out of school, like all of those things are real, not, I won't say consequences, but things that are impacted and happen after something like this, and a decision like this comes down. So first and foremost, Lonnie Teasley, thank you for, you know, the years you had here and your dedication to Gamecock football. I say all that to also say that we are going to have to look at this from an objective standpoint, where we look at this and say, I feel like it was time. I feel like it was time, and I understand the decision, and I think it was the right decision. Now, that may be a tough and harsh thing to hear, but I think when you talk about all the stuff off the field, sure. On the field, that's where the conversation feels like it has a lot of merit and validity to say why this decision was the right one to make. Now, I said this a couple weeks ago. I said about 3 weeks ago, I said it needed to happen. And if you could figure out a way, if you want to keep him on staff and retain him as a recruiter, yeah, love it. Awesome. Great job with getting Darius Gray. Got a few other guys that he's been influential with getting in the recruiting trail. And that's great. Like, that's all great. But we're here to win football games. And when you have an offensive line that for the last couple years has been, I keep saying this, I don't feel like I'm being dramatic or unfair when I say it. It feels like the only unit on this team that has not seen some level, not even significant, but just some level of progression, some level of development, and some step forward that makes you feel comfortable enough to know this position unit and this part of our football team is in the right hands moving forward down the road. I did not get that feeling with Lonnie Teasley at the helm of the offensive line. And I don't feel like this is like, well, somebody has to take the blame because you're tired of losing games or whatever. I don't get that feeling at all. I get the feeling that it was Shane Beamer doing what good coaches do, which is I got to evaluate. I have to self-evaluate. I have to look at this and say, like, are we getting better? Are we getting worse? And more importantly, is what's happening in this specific instance with this specific coach and who he's in charge of impacting us in a negative way where we're losing games? And the answer to that was yes. I mean, like, I don't know if it's why you lost to LSU. I don't think that's the only reason. But I will say 41 sacks 2 years ago, 41 sacks last year. Going into this game, you're at the bottom half of the offensive or the SEC in sacks allowed again. Now, he also brought up a good point. I thought this was a really good quote from Beamer because he does a weekly thing on Sunday nights where he kind of addressed this. And this is the quote he had. Okay, this is from Jordan K. I want to make sure I credit the person. He asked Shane Beamer if he was trending towards the decision to move on from Lonnie Teasley. He said he liked how South Carolina finished last season and thought the OL would take a big step forward this year. We haven't been better. I'm always evaluating. That's the thing. Listen, we talked about this a bunch. I think there was one of you in the comments pointed this out. I thought it was a great point, which is they moved forward at the end of last year. Remember the A&M game? I think they allowed 1 sack or no sacks. And I want to say, maybe I'm misremembering this, but I want to say I'm right, where you had the Oklahoma game where you get 9 sacks, but you allowed 7. Then you come back here against A&M, and they're a top 10 team. They got a great front four. They're really strong defensive line. And you get up like 1 sack or no sacks. It was like, and they kept getting better. They held their own against Clemson, it seemed like. And when they went down the gauntlet of games at the end of last season, they were good. Like, they were a good unit. They were much better, much improved. That didn't translate to this year. And here's the scary part, okay? It didn't translate. I know you lost 3 starters, but from a recruiting standpoint, from an evaluation standpoint, and from a talent standpoint, you were better and deeper at that position than you have been in years. And there was no moving forward. I want to break down this decision. I want to look into the numbers and say, hey, here's why it was a great decision. You had this many pressures allowed. You made, I've told you guys all the stats before, right? Like the pressures that you have allowed, it's like 122 or something like that crazy amount last year, I think. You've had over 10% of your plays every single year under Beamer have resulted in a negative yardage. You think about the amount of yards that are gained before first contact is made. I think you were bottom of the SEC in that. The decision making from Sellers sometimes impacted by how much time he has to throw the football, but also how much pressure he's under. And it's not just one person. It's from Josiah Thompson. And here's the other part too. It's not just from this offensive line, which is a mash unit right now, of basically going to have 4 starters out after Surratt went last night. So a lot of times I would look at this and I would say, yeah, you got 3 starters out against LSU. You lose a 4th. I mean, I jokingly said this from the press box. I was like, at some point, Chloe Kitts is going to have to come out here and play guard. And I don't mean point guard. I mean, it's just they're so thin and they keep the attrition has been awful. And so there's part of that makes you want to be like, oh, man, that feels frustrating or maybe unfair. But the reason I'm not going to, at least on this episode, get into all of those small details and the numbers and all that kind of stuff, which you guys know I love to do because I love a deep dive, is because I think if I'm speaking honestly, and I'm not trying to speak for everybody, but I think I kind of can on this thing, it feels like everyone's in agreement that this is the right decision. This is the right decision. So that is all for the first segments. We are going to now talk about the LSU game. Good, bad, the ugly. Also, we're going to talk about what to do from here. Now, I will say this. I hate to almost piggyback this because of the Lonnie Teasley thing, and I know it's a tough situation for him and his family, like I said. But Shawn Elliott coming in. Little finger roll here. Shawn Elliott taking over. Your boy is excited about that. I will say that. I love Shawn Elliott. One of the best interviews I've ever done. He's great. And I think this is going to be a good move moving forward. Now, before we go on to the next segment, I also want to talk about moving the game forward. And this episode is brought to you by our friends over at Mazda. You heard me talk about it at the top of the break. This episode is brought to you by them. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment of moving the game forward, tell you what, from last night's game, I was really impressed with the defense again. And there's a part of Clayton White's defense. I don't know how he does it. I don't know how he does it all the time. And I said this going on several shows last week around here in Louisiana. And they looked at me like I was like an alien, right? And I kept saying, it's not just that he's able to force turnovers. He's really good at getting his defense to force turnovers in the red zone when their backs against the wall at the goal line. And that happened twice last night from the 1 yard line where South Carolina was able to force a turnover and at least stay in the game a little bit longer. Now, that being said, I'm going to give him the game ball and give him the MVP from last night of moving the game forward. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. We'll be right back with more Locked On Gamecocks right after this. All right, we're back. So just briefly want to talk a little bit more about the offensive line thing. I think Shawn Elliott's a good move. I jokingly talk about this with Andrew Lyon, the former host of the show, on Twitter, because he said it. I've been saying it for a while, and I'm sure he felt the same way. Great dude, knows South Carolina better than anybody. Love to death. That, like, the idea, go just make Pittman tell you no. Make Sam Pittman tell you no. That's all I have to say about it. Make Sam Pittman tell you no. Make Matt Luke from Clemson tell you no. Like, go get a win with a great offensive line coach, and go get a win with a from like an optics standpoint. Also, I like Shawn Elliott. Like now, admittedly, I don't know if he's the guy moving forward for offensive line coach. That's not like there are other names that I would be happy with if they got those two that I just named for sure. But if they give the job to Elliott, I have been saying this for 2 years. Like when he first came on, we did a whole deep dive last summer, and I was like, hey, here's all of his numbers in the run game. This is what he proves. This is what he does. Have you seen the dude? Like he's jacked. He's like amped up, full of energy, and like he's a guy that people rally around. And none of this is to say anything negative about Teasley. Once again. But Elliott's a dude that's been a head football coach at Georgia State. Keep in mind, Georgia State, they beat Tennessee that 1 year, multiple bowl games. But what he did was, first and foremost, was establish a toughness in the trenches and in the run game, where he was a difference maker in doing so for that program. Now, I don't know what the move is at the long term. I don't know what this even looks like, because you didn't do it during the bye week, which was kind of bizarre. I thought if you were going to do it, you would do it during the bye week. But that's fine. I think it shows a lot of gumption and a lot of like, I'm happy that Beamer was able to do it. Now, here's the other part too. Is it the end of the firings? I don't know. We need to get into the LSU game. We need to get into the LSU game because it's a game that obviously, like, we have to talk about before it's Monday. I don't want to go into Monday without talking about the game. So let's table this talk about this other stuff. Let's get into the game itself. I talked to a couple of y'all. For those of you that reached out when you're in Baton Rouge, it was awesome. There are plenty of you that sent me messages, and I think I gave you guys some recommendations to go to. And that was really cool. Will Lake, you and I talked a little bit about something different, that Swifty from Tyler Newton. Bunch of y'all, I think just a bunch of y'all reached out, and it was a lot of fun, man. I really, really appreciate it. And it was a good weekend. Also, Jason Sherman, got to meet him at one of the local bars. That was really cool. And talked to him for a good while. But I hope you guys had a great trip in Baton Rouge itself. Disappointing atmosphere. I almost like, it was weird seeing how quickly that place emptied. That's not the Baton Rouge or Death Valley experience I'm sure y'all had heard about. But getting into the game now, there's like a part of me that the homer in me wants to look at this and be like, okay, well, that game was close because it was a 7-point game. But if you don't force a fumble on the one and you don't get a turnover on the pick on the goal line, then it's not close. It's not close. And if we're being objective, here's a frustrating part. And it's twofold because two things can be true at the same time when it comes to this game specifically. You lost 20-10. It kind of played out. If you watch the show with me and Matt, and the same thing I did with Gordy, the crossover show with Matt Moscona and then the one with my boss, Gordy Rush, him and I, we all kind of agreed. Like for me, at least, it felt like one of those games that's going to be close for 2 to 3 plus quarters, and then LSU will pull away and probably cover the spread right around 10 points. 20-10 is your final score. So you were in that game. I saw Lauren Beasley say this on Twitter, and it's a really good point. It's frustrating. I think it was Lauren Beasley. It's frustrating because you could have won that game. Like you could, that was a winnable game, and you didn't win it. And if we're being honest, also there weren't like a ton of things that made you feel like you were going to win it. I mean, you had a 7-3 lead. It was tied 10-10. You were in their territory constantly, but then that's where the other part of the two things can be true at the same time thing comes in. And I'm going to tell you just from my own scattered ADD brain where I'm coming from what my biggest takeaways were, and they might be different than yours, but my biggest takeaways first and go from there. You were in their territory 7 times last night. You came away with 3 points. I jokingly said to the guy next to me in the press box, and I was, because I was so frustrated at the time, and again, you can't cheer in the press box. I'm just like trying to be an adult, trying to be mature, trying to be professional. But every time you got to like the 40 or you got to like the 35 or 30, I looked at him at one point. I go, about time for a false start, about time for a self-inflicted wound. And it felt like almost every time they did that, that was the next thing that would happen. At one point, you get a big first down. It's 1st and 10 from their 41. Next thing you know, it's 2nd and 28 from your 39. And it's like, I mean, we saw multiple 3rd and 30s or 3rd and 24s last night. And we all know that's not winning football. We talked about it coming into the game. You had 22 third downs that were 3rd and 10 or longer. You converted 3 of them all year. 14.3%. That's 3 for 21. But you know what I mean? Like, that's not a recipe for winning, especially against one of these defenses. And I'm going to start with the negative because there were some positives too. But that was a negative for me. There have been so many questionable decisions from a play calling standpoint in the offense. Let me start by saying I thought the offense looked better in the run game. Not the passing game, but the run game. I thought it looked better. They came after Lenore Sellers all night. I'm sitting in the postgame press conference with Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly says, we got after him, and that was the plan from the get-go. We were going to get after him all night, and they did. And that's a very good defense. So there's a part of me that looks at this, and it's like, man, you sat there and you ran for 193 yards against that defense. 45 carries, 193 yards. It's over 5 yards a carry, right? Maybe it's not. I don't know. I'm not good at math. So we just admit it, you know? But like, Lenore's finally gets involved in the run game. Second play, sorry, let me rephrase, because the first play of the game was a fumble. Then you come in and I think it's like the second play from scrimmage when they got the ball back. You run a design QB run out to the outside. It goes for like 9 yards, something like that. Like, it was good to see him get involved in the run game. But he ends up with 22 carries. To put that in perspective, the 22 carries, that's 1 less than he had in the first 3 games combined. Now, some of these were sacks. Some of these were running for his life and trying to get out of bounds. But still 22 carries, what's on the stat sheet. Not all of them were design runs at all. But 22 carries, that's the same. It's 1 less than you had the first 3 games combined. It's 8 more than you've had in any other game this season. It goes for 19 yards. He's held without a touchdown again. We are in game 6. He has 5 touchdowns. How? I'm going to try so hard not to cuss right now. How the beep is that possible with what you have at quarterback? How is that possible? How have you managed to do this, Mike Shula? So the frustrating part from that is, fine, he goes 15 of 27, which I believe is exactly 60% or something like that, divided by 3. It's 55.6%. For 124 yards and interception. But like, was he put in positions where he could have won? I don't know, because it didn't feel like he had enough time a lot of times to make a decision. There were several throws that he was able to drive the ball down the field. The one to Harbor, especially in the seam, I thought was great. But there was also several throws. It was like I just didn't understand what the offensive mindset was doing. And I'll tell you the best example of why I am out on Mike Shula. And listen, dude, I love Mike Shula, great dude. Grew up around a bunch of people in my family that pulled for the team. He was the head coach of, like, very familiar with Mike Shula. Came on here and told you how good I thought of a job he could do. But again, what Beamer said is what we should all be saying too. And it's not complaining. It's not fans bitching. It's not fans moaning. It is objectively looking at this and saying, hey, man, we're constantly evaluating. You're coming up short. You're coming up short. I'll go to my go-to guy every Sunday. He tweets about it, and it breaks my heart every time I have to read it. Brad Crawford. Brad Crawford goes into Sunday. He posts this. He said, South Carolina offense after 6 games. In total yards, you're last in the SEC, 123rd in the country. In scoring, last in the SEC, 104th. Now, keep in mind also, the scoring offense, the numbers you have from the 6 non-offensive touchdowns are involved in that. Like, it should be less. It should be even less. Rushing, you're 15th in the SEC, 112th in the country. Passing, 14th in the SEC, 100th in the country. Sacks allowed, 15th in the SEC, 124th in the country. Tackles for loss allowed, 14th in the country, 108th, or 14th in the SEC, 108th in the country. You are now 100th or worse in every single major statistical category offensively. They got the run game going at times last night. That was good. But here are 2 things where I'll tell you why I'm out on Mike Shula. And we will do a show about this specifically tomorrow. Matthew Fuller is your leading rusher against Kentucky. I thought Faison ran the blank out of the ball. I thought he was awesome. I'm not sure why Oscar Idaway only got 1 carry. I don't love that. But Faison was running the ball very well. 13 carries, 68 yards, long of 14, had over 5 yards a carry. That's the Faison we have been wanting to see. Breaking tackles, getting in between the tackles, getting out on the edge. Like 68 carries or 68 yards on and 14 were or 14 was as long, means he was consistent all night. Matthew Fuller, 7 carries, 83 yards. Now, here's the thing. Your long was 72, which means your other 6 carries only amounted to 11 yards. But here's the problem, and every single one of you knows where I'm going with this. Matthew Fuller runs a 72-yard touchdown to give South Carolina a 7-3 lead in the first quarter. He didn't touch the ball for the rest of the first half. How's that possible? You gave him 18 carries for 48 yards against Kentucky. You fed him nonstop. He rips off a 72-yard run in the first quarter, and he doesn't get the ball the rest of the first half? What are you doing? Like what are you doing? And I can spend an entire 30 minutes cussing out Mike Shula about how stupid that decision is. Because let's be clear, it's stupid. It's stupid. Mike Shula knows so much more about football than me, it's not even funny. His dad is arguably the greatest NFL coach of all time. He has been coaching for 40-plus years. I'm not even 40 years old. Close. No part of me is doubting that or trying to play armchair quarterback. I am telling you, and I don't think it's an opinion, I think it's objective fact. If you have a kid that you force-fed 18 carries for 48 yards against Kentucky, and he rips off a 72-yard touchdown, he better get the damn ball at least once more in the first half. Doesn't touch it. Here's the other play that I thought was the dumbest decision, and here's the thing. Maybe it was on Lenore's. But on 3rd and 9, you're down 17-10 late in the game. 3rd and 9, you run Faison for a 5-yard gain. I thought that was a smart play, trying to get some yardage, make sure you're not in a 4th and long, right? 4th and 4, you line up 1 wide to the right on Mansour Delane. You have 3 wide over here. It looked like somebody broke free to the inside. I think it might have been Rowe. But it was one of those things where LSU brought the house, and you have got to figure out where you're going with this ball. And maybe this is on the Norse. I don't know. But a 4th and 4, where one of your decisions is a 5-yard dig route. I'm glad he ran it to the right length or right yardage. Throwing on arguably the best cornerback in the country right now, Mansour Delane, on 4th and 4, with your life on the line, where you have to get a first down to continue this football game. Tell you what, if 4 years ago you're watching a game and you know that you have a 7-point lead and the offense comes out and says, all right, we got 3 trips to the right. We got one guy to the we got 3 trips to the left. We got one wide to the right. We're going to throw this ball on J.C. Horn on 4th and 4. Yeah, I love my odds. I love my odds if I'm the defensive coach on that one. It should have never happened. It should have never happened. And there's a million other things that we can talk about. But first, we got to pay some bills, and I got to calm down. Unbelievable. Just unbelievable, man. It's the same crap. It's the same crap every week. And it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating. All right. Before we go to break, you know what? Let's just go to break. I need a second. So annoying. Before we keep going, I want to give a quick shout out to our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel, it is football season, guys, and we are having a blast. The NFL season's here. FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5. If it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. My favorite thing, I love these parlays, but I also love the in-game updates that you're able to get from FanDuel. One of the best values you can get in any sort of sports betting is when the live money line, live spread, live total is moved or manipulated after opening kick. FanDuel has the up-to-the-minute props, over-under, team totals, all that stuff at your fingertips after every single play. Make sure you are signed up, because if you haven't, I don't know what you're waiting for. Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Also, want to give a quick shout out to our friends at Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their finances, guys, their financial accounts, or even what they're worth. Whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments, when you don't have the full picture, you could end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've been putting off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting, and you can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Do not let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONCollege. All right, let's close out the show with this. Let's get some positives in. All right. You established the run yesterday a lot better than you have. And here's the thing that has to be taken into account with this. You did it against one of the best defenses in the country. Okay. You did it against one of the best defenses in the country. And that needs to be brought up if we are going to have an honest conversation about what the actual performance on the field was. Okay. Now here's the other part of this. Okay. And this is the part that's not fun. You finished the night with 317 yards of offense. 317 yards of offense. Now, let's put that in perspective. Hold on. Let's also look at this real quick. South Carolina scoring on the year, 134 points. That means that you have scored 98 points because of the 6 non-offensive touchdowns. That's you're the only school in the country, in the SEC, that has less than 100 points of offense. It's unbelievable. I mean, it's unbelievable. And what sucks about it is this, guys. That takes away from so many other things that could have been an additional strength to this team. Like last year, it was like, yeah, we had some bad offensive line, underperforming receiving core. and some things you got to get better on, blah, blah, blah. Kicker might be a little bit iffy at times. But you had all these other things that were positives and good enough to mask that, but also like they weren't a detriment. I've debated on saying this the entire day planning for the show. You're just in danger of wasting Lenore Sellers. There's no chance, in my opinion, that he's going to come back for another year. I think he still is able. Whether you think he's good, there's a faction of his fan base that thinks he's the problem, and that's stupid. That's stupid. He's the only reason you are in games at times. He's the only reason you're in games. You can sit here and say all the crap you want about, he holds on to the football too long, he does this and that. Cool, dude. Cool. He's also running for his life on almost every single snap. And you are in danger of wasting a generational type talent in Lenore Sellers. Some of you are going to push back and say the same stuff that I hear all the time, which is Connor Shaw was better than him. Sure, he's a better winner than him. Agreed. My point is this. It's very plain to see that physically, he's the most talented quarterback you may have ever had at this program. And physically, he's more talented than almost any other quarterback in the country. There are flaws in his game, but you're in danger of wasting him and him going to the NFL next year. And whether you agree or not, whether you agree with it or not, you're not a scout. It doesn't matter. Someone is going to see what he does on tape. Someone's going to see the 3rd and 37 that didn't even go for a first down, where he rolls out to his left across his body, fires a 33 or 34-yard strike to Nick Harbor and say, I'll build a team around that. No one else in this draft class can do that. I'll build a team around that. Sure, it could be a mistake, and you might not agree with it. But somebody's going to come along in the NFL and put millions of dollars into his pocket and say, you should just come here. Like, why would you want to stay in college for another year? So that is a frustrating part. That being said, there were things that this offense did last night that took steps forward. And I think that's very fair. 6 of 16 on 3rd down, not great, but 37.5%, pretty good and better than you have been. Here's the other part too, guys. 13 penalties for 65 yards. My goodness. My goodness. And you know how frustrated I am? We didn't even get into the part of the game where you get screwed once again by the refs on the illegal procedure call. And but there were positive things that happened last night in this game. I think if there's one positive, the biggest positive I would take away from this whole thing, if there is one, is, you weren't able to get any sacks, and that's against the defensive line or offensive line that's been pretty suspect. They were holding Dylan Stewart all night, but you did get a lot of pressure, and that resulted in turnovers, and that resulted in other things and taking them out of their comfort zone. I told you all week I thought they were going to try to figure out a way to establish the run. 28 carries for 168 yards. They did. They did what a lot of teams have done to this defense, which is at the end of the 3rd and 4th quarter, they were able to start kind of leaning on you a little bit, and that was frustrating to see. But I thought overall they did a pretty good job, man. I thought they held their own. The 2 interceptions, the fumble return. You start out a game with a fumble inside your own 20 against that type of defense on the road. That's not good. That's not good. But I thought being able to figure out Brian Rowe getting involved. I thought if there was one takeaway that I had more than anything else, the defense doing what Clayton White defenses do, and forcing turnovers with their backs against the wall was awesome. I thought Russell Faison had a breakout game. I thought this is something that you can use moving forward. And it's been a long show already, so we need to wrap it up. But here's the one thing I'll say, as negative as I've been on the show. We'll do a show tomorrow on Monday. We'll get back into this game a little bit more. We'll talk a little bit more about the same subject, just with a little bit more, maybe, I don't know. I don't want to say more logic, because I feel like we've been pretty logical about it. Maybe a little less anger is a good way to put it. But here's the thing. I think that there were building blocks from this loss. And you're going to go face an Oklahoma team coming off a loss. You're going to get them at home. It's a crappy start time. I think it's 11:45 a.m. But you are going to have a situation where I am going to allow myself the delusion for another week to believe this team can turn it around. And after that, we're going to reevaluate some of these goals and think about where this team ends up, because there are concerns. Do you make a bowl game? I think Coastal is a win, but I'm looking at the rest of that schedule, and it's are you about to have 4 straight losses? I don't necessarily feel that way, But you got to win one of those 4 plus Clemson and Coastal to get to a bowl. This is where they turned it on last year. So for that reason, I'm going to give Shane Beamer the benefit of the doubt because he and his coaching staff do deserve it. Mike Shula, maybe not. But I am going to give myself the delusion for another week to see if they can at least turn it around. I think you should do the same, but I understand if you don't. I really do, because it was a frustrating night in Tiger Stadium last night. That is all for today's show. I appreciate you guys so much. Hope you all have a great rest of your Sunday night, Monday morning. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Until then, as always, go Cox.